A little bit. A little bit. I'll tell you why. There's a difference. If you can, let me put it this way. If you don't lead well, you make it worse. If you lead really well, and that's what adaptive leadership is about. We're trying to talk about how do we take these organizations we love, like we love these places. How do we take them through the changes that they have to go through or they will not be available for the people that we love? Right? So we're learning how to do it. We honor it. We start with charism. We're aware of mission. We go to pain point. We talk about transformation. That's what's in our souls, right? And sabotage is part of it. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Can a pastoral transition, because you were talking about pastoral transition, be enough? Like just that simple transition, be enough to cause sabotage?
It's a great insight. Let's put it this way. All this work on leadership and change all started from when Ed Friedman and a guy named Peter Steinke started working with churches in conflict. It was all this research started when churches went in conflict. Why? Because for the better part of most generations, people didn't resist change because there wasn't change. Churches where things didn't change. When you had a conflict, right? Someone runs with the scissors, someone's a bully, someone decides they're going to put a drum set in the church and that made someone mad, right? All of a sudden there's a conflict, then this would happen and sabotage would be in the middle of it. What we now know is any change is experienced as a kind of disruption and a crisis and will then be met with sabotage. So yeah, transition, oftentimes, right? Absolutely. Think about this. The next time you watch a group of people get elected do you guys elect people to a nominating committee to pick a new pastor? Right, okay. You have a nominating committee to nominate the people, right? Okay, good. One of my favorite parts is this. When you ask people why they want to be on the committee, like why do you want to be on the pastor search committee? They will often say stuff like this. Because I want to make sure that the voice of the fill in the blank is heard. Because I want to represent the people who love this church or love this, because I'm committed to our Adventist values, because I'm like, almost everybody's there to protect against something. So you realize you got a whole group of people who are basically going into this thing going, we're going to discern the people that are going to make me popular with some other folks. Instead of what's the will of God calling us to go forward. Now there's always people who do, but oh, how hard it is, right? It's hard. So it's normal. It's really normal. I just want to normalize sabotage because, and let me say, here's one last question that people have got to ask about sabotage that doesn't often get asked, that needs to get asked. Does that mean every single time that someone is opposing your idea, they're sabotaging you? No, it can't be, right? Here's the difference, right? If you are actually moving forward as an adaptive leader, and one of the first commitment is to learning, and you're going to do experiments and you're going to be curious, you're going to find some of your ideas were wrong. The problem is people who want sabotage don't want to figure out the next step forward. They want to go back. People who are sabotagers, right? Those people want the status quo. So, civil rights movement, every single time we get to Martin Luther King Day, every year, I read the letter from the Birmingham jail. Why? It was written to Episcopal, Lutheran, and Presbyterian clergy who said things like this. We're not opposed to your goals. We're just opposed to your methods. What was the method they were so opposed to? The method that got him thrown into prison? 50 people dressed in their Sunday best walked down the street silently on Good Friday because they didn't have voting rights. That was so upsetting to the people of Birmingham, Alabama, that they made sure their pastors wrote a letter to the editor that the churches were unified to say we didn't need that here. Dr. King had the letter smuggled to him, and on bits of newspaper and toilet paper and scrap paper, he wrote out a letter that went back as a response. And what he said was, to my clergy brothers, they were all men. This is the most difficult thing, because worse than the Ku Klux Klaner is the white moderate who would say, we're not opposed to your goals, we're opposed to your methods. It's sabotage. We all have the capacity for it. It's not the bad things that evil people do. It's the human things that anxious people do. And just one more illustration, just lest you think this is a modern phenomenon. Let me take you back to the greatest miracle in the Bible until the resurrection, the Exodus. You remember the story of the Exodus. I don't have to tell you the Bible story. But after the 10 plagues, right? 10 times, Moses goes to Pharaoh, let my people go. Pharaoh says, no, 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 no. We have that horrible night, that horrible, brutal, amazing, terrible night, where they literally eat the unleavened bread, holding onto their staffs, loins girded, standing, ready to go, because the angel of death is going to pass over the Egyptians, and because the blood of the lamb is over the doorpost, they are spared. But the firstborn of Egypt all die. Moses wakes up in the morning, sees the carnage, and says, let those people can go. And 650,000 all are freed. Exodus 13 says, God knows their fearful hearts and knows that if they run into their ancient foes, the Philistines, they've been enslaved for 400 years. They haven't seen a Philistine in 400 years. Talk about trauma. They got 400-year-old trauma. The Philistines are like the boogeyman. If they run into their ancient foes, the Philistines, they will want to go back. So God sends them another route. He sends them a safer route. He sends them right into the cul-de-sac that is the Red Sea. 650,000 of them staring at the Red Sea. Not a shred of biblical evidence that any of them are good swimmers. They turn around and look behind them, and Pharaoh is sending the chariots out after them. Why? Because Pharaoh can do math. Pharaoh's figured out that if you want to build pyramids and you want to be famous and you want to build monuments and have infrastructure and all the stuff you want to do to make you a great pharaoh, it's really hard to do when you get rid of 650,000 enslaved people who work for nothing. So he says, go get them back. And he sends out the chariots. And you know the story. They're caught there between the Red Sea and the chariots, and the people of God do what the people of God always do. They look up and they blame the leader. Moses, this was your idea. You're the one who said freedom. We didn't say freedom. Did you say freedom? I didn't say freedom. I just wanted some more straw, maybe a better lunch, maybe some more time off for worship. That's all we wanted. We just wanted a better Sabbath. I don't know. Moses said freedom. We didn't say freedom. Thanks, Moses. Thanks a lot. Way to go, Mo. Exodus 14:11, it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. Moses says, stand firm and see what the Lord will do. And the Lord does. Parts by the Red Sea. They go through on dry land. They get to the other side. They see the chariots coming after them. They get scared. The waters come back and the water floods over the chariots, and the chariots and chariot drivers are dead on the beach. They are freed. I mean, they're really freed. They are now, they got a Red Sea between them and Egypt, and the Egyptian army is dead. Exodus 14:31, so the people believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Hallelujah, amen. Strike up the band, and that's what they do. Exodus 15 is 2 praise songs. And then they go to lunch. And it's over lunch that all the problems start. Who said we were going to be camping? Nobody said we were going to be outside. We didn't bring enough food for all these people. What are we doing? If you'd have told us ahead of time, Moses, we'd have been fine. But we're going to be outside? 6 weeks later. 6 weeks. 6 weeks after seeing the greatest miracle that anybody would see till the resurrection. 6 weeks later, it says the whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses. 6 weeks. Not the bad things that evil people do. The human things that anxious people do. We don't know where we're going to get food. You know, slavery. I know. They killed our children, but we did have leeks and onions. Maybe we should go back. 6 weeks. Moses, of course, says, trust in the Lord, see what he will do. God gives them manna in the morning, pillar of clouds by day, pillar of fire by night, leads them forward. They have ups and downs, literally, Mount Sinai, golden calf. They keep going until Numbers chapter 11. And in Numbers chapter 11, they grumble again. And this time it's not because they're hungry. This time it's because they are bored with the miracle that God is doing every morning. Manna again? Oh my gosh. Remember the flesh pots? I think the flesh pots were bacon, by the way. I just want you to know that. Remember the flesh pots? Oh, remember the leeks and onions? Oh, we should go back. And this time Moses gets mad. Moses literally goes to God and says, God, if you're going to leave me with these people, you can kill me now. Now, I don't know if you ever said that after a particularly bad Sabbath morning. Went home, talked to your spouse, said, but I'll bet you at least once you came home and said, I could sell real estate. I could sell life insurance. I could teach biology. There's all kinds of things I could do. Oh my gosh. I could be a social media influencer. I don't need to do it, right? Oh my gosh. Right? There are so many things I could do. Oh, why am I doing this? I always think I could do trail maintenance in the national parks. Right? I go move a rock, move a log, pick up some litter, come to the garden alone with no Christians around me. Right? Oh, it'd be awesome. Just like, really? What Ed Friedman says is he says that temptation that Moses faced in Exodus 16 was a temptation toward what he calls a failure of nerve. The failure of nerve is what happens when the anxiety of the group becomes such that you start colluding with them. You're more concerned about their anxiety and their being anxious and mad at you than you are about the transformation. And so you have a failure of nerve. It's literally where you find yourself saying stuff like, hey, well, now that we think about it, we are kind of tired. We've had a little change fatigue. Maybe we could get really good conditions from Pharaoh. Now he knows God's on our side. I'll bet you we could get a lot more straw. And I'll bet we could get 2 days off. We could invent the weekend. It would be awesome. We just need to go back. Failure of nerve. Failure of nerve is what happens when we experience their anxiety and we stop the transformation process. We collude with them in non-change. Moses doesn't, by the way. We notice Moses in this moment keeps going. Imagine what would have been like 650,000 of them saying we should all go back. You think that it was bad trying to get a drum set. Oh my gosh, right? Right? 650,000, we all going back. He's like, no, here's the manna, here's the clouds, here's the fire, here we go. What I think happened to Moses is what happened in Numbers 11, where I think he had a failure of heart. The failure of heart is what happens when we get cynical. We get angry. We don't collude with our people in non-change. Oh, we keep the change going. We just know that we really resent them for making it so hard on us. We get discouraged. We get emotionally disconnected. We start thinking to ourselves, as soon as there's a better group of people, I'm joining them. Jimmy Miata, who's the president of Compassion International, said to me at a Fuller board meeting, Todd, the greatest danger of doing the work of God is it can undo God's work in you. Right? Failure of heart. Sabotage is often the case for a change leader's failure of nerve or failure of heart. When you think about your own experience of sabotage, what did it do to you? Does you find yourself even now wrestling with, next time I feel like I've been so traumatized, and I do think it's very traumatic. So it's going to be really hard for me to disappoint people at a rate they can absorb. It's hard for me to be a disappointer. A lot of us got into ministry because we are people pleasers. People were proud of us. Just think about this. You do a good sermon, people come out and tell you they love you. We love you. Our family loves you. I said, I've had plumbers come to my house in the middle of the night. I pay them, but I don't hug them, right? People look at us like, oh, man. And we eat it up because we don't get paid much. So we get paid on approval. Oh, it's hard. And others of us, we are so committed, we are so dedicated, and we get so mad. Our disappointment in people is visceral, and they know it. And they don't want to follow us anywhere. Sabotage is often the cause for the change leader's failure of nerve and failure of heart. Remember, resilience, the capacity to maintain core purpose. That's our mission. Maintain integrity. That's our values, including our love and care for people. That's what happens. We need resilience at that moment. Please, sir, go ahead. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah. 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 Good. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's a great question. So you're anticipating where I'm going because this is one of the parts. Because it's the right thing. Pay attention to the fact that I actually think that one of the biggest struggles of the golden calf is that it was Aaron. It's freaking Aaron. Imagine he goes back and he's like, you're my brother. And one of the most interesting parts is when he hits the rock a second time and he's mad at the people and God says, because of this, you're not going into the promised land. Rabbi Joseph Sachs points out he just lost Miriam. It was the first time he'd had to lead without his sister. Like, we're dangerous when we're by ourselves. We're going to talk more about that in this last hour. It's this reminder that we have to acknowledge if you prepare and you know that you're going to face sabotage and you know you need to be resilient, how do you do so? So just one more slide, then we're going to take just a little break, and then we'll come back and finish up the time, okay? When you're leading through sabotage, what we learned from the Lombard Mennonite Peace Center is that when you're going to go through sabotage and you know it's coming, you have to start with a conviction. This is why we do this work. We are talking about our charism. We're clear on what's never going to change. We know who we are. We're not being aspirational. This isn't just some idea I made up by myself. We're doing deep work. We have listened to our community. We know there's pain out there. We've asked the Lord, is this ours to do? And we recognize it's going to require us to change. When we start going through the transformation, when we go from charism to pain point to transformation, we know there's going to be resistance. So start with a conviction. And when the sabotage comes, stay calm. If you get angry, it'll all become about your getting angry. And I got to say this, you're younger. A lot of you are people of color, and many of you are women. It's way worse for you than it is for me. When I get angry with my gray hair and my PhD and my glasses, people think I'm so courageous and prophetic. When you get angry, they want to give me your job. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. But if you understand that by staying calm, what you get is the opportunity to stay close to people in the process of transformation. When you stay calm, you also make better decisions. Anxiety makes you stupid. And anger makes it difficult. When you can be able, and I'm not saying that you have to swallow it or suck it up. I'm saying that you don't want to start making decisions until you get yourself down to the place where you can be focused on the mission. Moses wasn't standing in front of 650,000 people saying, well, I'll show them who God picked. He had a mission. I'm just supposed to take these people to freedom. We're going. Stay focused on the mission. Stay calm. Second, stay connected. This could be the hardest one. The more connected you stay to people, the harder it is for them to stay sabotaging you. You see it over and over again in the ministry of Jesus. He keeps going close to people. He reaches close to people. You stay connected to them. By staying connected to them, what happens is they experience your presence, and they may not agree with what you're doing, but it makes it so much harder for them to oppose you. You actually, by staying more connected, we want to disconnect to people. You've got to go closer to them. When I was leading our church, and our church was staying in our denomination during a time when our denomination was splitting, we had people who would call the church and say, look, if we're going to stay in that denomination, we're leaving. And I would call all of them back. And if they wrote me an email, I picked up the phone. And if they called me, I'd ask if I could meet them for coffee. And if they met me for coffee, I'd ask if I can come to their house. I would go one step closer every time. And I would ask them every time, look, you love this church. You tell me you love this church. These people you love, they're like family to you. These folks have helped you through all these. And you're leaving because a group of people are doing something with the initials on the door 1,000 miles away. And they would go, I just can't do it. I'm leaving. And every single time, I would have to swallow my anger and my disappointment. And I would say to them, you are leaving us, we are not leaving you. If you need me, you call me. Until you find a church home, I'm still your pastor. Something happens where you need something, you let me know. If you call, I will be there. If you need our church, we're there. You want to show up on a Sunday morning, you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You want your kids to be in the program, you're welcome. You can't give us a dime, I don't care. We're going to stay connected to you. I worked with a church where literally they had to fire the senior pastor who built a church from 8 families to 8,000. They had to let him go, and he basically threatened to go across the street and plant a new church and split the church and take everybody with him. And I worked with the pastor, and he said, what are we going to do if he does it? He said, if they start a new church across the street, you get your staff and you line the street and hand down water bottles on the way across. And you tell them, if you leave, it's really okay, but no, you can always come back. Stay connected, and then stay the course. Get up in the morning and say, look, we got manna in the morning. We got a pillar of clouds, pillar of fire. We're going. If it's truly a conviction that we've come to together, I know we feel like family, and I know those people don't feel like family, but our job is to make them feel like family, so we're going to go make them feel like family. This is what we do. Start with conviction, stay calm, stay connected, stay the course, which is, of course, easier said than done. So what we're going to do after we take a break is talk about how we become people who can do that, okay? It's almost 5 after 2. We will come back at 10 after 2. At 10 after 2, I'll start yelling for you to be quiet, and when you ignore me for a few minutes, we'll get started about 12 after, okay? So about 10 after, okay? We'll be back together, all right? And we're going to go right till 3. We're stopping right before 3, so we're not going over. So